All right, this is it, the final explainer in our North Star and Time Sovereignty series. And today, we are going deep. We're not just looking at habits or goals. No. We're talking about the foundational code that runs your entire life, usually without you even knowing it's there.
You know, most of us go through life thinking we're in the driver's seat. We choose our job, we choose our friends, we choose what to have for dinner. It feels like we are the ones making all the calls, right? But what if that feeling of control is mostly an illusion? A really convincing one, for sure, but an illusion all the same. Because underneath all of our so-called choices, something else is really pulling the strings.
And here's the secret. Our lives aren't really run by our choices. They're run by our assumptions. These invisible, unquestioned rules that we probably picked up years ago and just never ever thought to challenge.
And this is why we sometimes feel stuck in a loop. I mean, you can change your job, you can change the city you live in, you can even change your relationships, but if that deep underlying code doesn't change, you're just going to replay the exact same story with a different cast of characters. These assumptions, we call them axioms. They're the ones writing your story. But in this explainer, we're going to learn how to find them and how to rewrite them. And listen, if that's a journey you're ready for, if you want to take back control, help us build this community of deep thinkers. Just take a second to like this, share it, and subscribe to Project Human. It makes a huge difference. Okay, let's crack this code.
So what are these powerful, invisible forces really? Let's get a really clear definition down.
Okay, I want you to think about it like this. Axioms are basically the background software of your mind. You don't see the operating system on your computer, right? You just open the apps. Well, it's the same thing. Axioms run silently in the background, and they power every single thing you value, every goal you set, every emotion you feel. You didn't choose them, you just kind of absorb them.
And here's the really tricky part. They often sound so reasonable, don't they? They even sound noble. Hard work always pays off. Who's going to argue with that? But the problem isn't that they're evil. The problem is that they are rarely the whole story. They're incomplete, they're context-dependent, and they can accidentally lead us down paths that just aren't ours to walk.
Now, there's one axiom in particular that has a massive group on our entire culture, and honestly, it's the source of so much quiet suffering.
We've basically built our modern world on this one super seductive idea. You are a self-made individual. It's that classic story, right? The lone hero, the sole architect of their own destiny, pulling themselves up by their bootstraps. It sounds amazing, but it has a really dark side. And here's the poison hidden inside that idea. It forces you to believe that everything in your life is 100% your doing. It completely ignores things like luck, timing, where you were born, simple chance. And it creates this brutal reality. When you succeed, hey, you feel like a god. But when you struggle, you feel completely worthless because the axiom says it must be all your fault.
This is that voice. That's the modern daemon. It's that little whisper of shame in the back of your head that tells you your struggles are just a personal failure, that you didn't have enough willpower. We mistake this cruel inner critic for the truth because we've absorbed the axiom that it was born from.
So you gotta understand, a bad axiom isn't just a wrong idea. It's incredibly expensive. It costs you your time, your peace, your potential. It makes you burn decades trying to solve the wrong problems, like performing for love that should be a given, or chasing a version of success that doesn't actually mean anything to you.
Okay, so if our minds are running on faulty code, how in the world do we fix it? How do we debug ourselves? This is where we get really practical. It's the most important question, isn't it? Because you can't just wish these things away. You actually have to go in there, do the work, and replace them.
The tool is called the Axiom Audit. It's a 5-step process. First, you detect. When you feel that friction, you ask, what's the assumption under this feeling? Second, you trace it back. Where did I learn this? Parents, school, culture? Third, you test it. You ask, is this always true in every single case? The answer is almost always no. Fourth, you replace it with an axiom that feels truer and more useful. And then finally, the most important step, you embed it. You consciously start to design your choices and your life around that new, better belief.
So what does life actually look like on the other side of this? I mean, what's the real payoff for doing this deep, philosophical work on yourself? Well, the transformation is just profound. Before, your time is reactive. You're just putting out fires. After, your time becomes truly intentional. Your North Star, which we've talked about all series, it stops shifting around and it becomes stable. Money stops being this mirror for your self-worth, and it just becomes a tool.
And freedom is no longer about escaping your life. It's about building a life that feels totally in sync with who you are.
And that's the ultimate light bulb moment. We spend so much of our lives looking for meaning out there somewhere, like it's a treasure we have to find. But this work shows you that meaning was never out there. It's in here. It's in the way you choose to frame reality itself.
And at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. The goal was never to be perfect. The goal was to live a life where you have looked your own assumptions in the eye, you've taken ownership of them, and you have consciously decided to rewrite them. That is the real essence of wisdom. That is the final stage of time sovereignty.
Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer and for this entire series. Now go out there and start your own audit. Reclaim your hours, reclaim your meaning, and reclaim your life.